Happy Monday. Happy Monday. Say what's up in the chat. Say where you watching from. Let me hit this light real quick. Alright guys. We're a little pressed for time today, guys, because I got a group today. A support group today. So yeah, we're gonna jump right in and get into this reacting. What's up, everybody? March 24th, 2025 on a Monday. Welcome back, guys. Welcome back to Cozy Corner TV Live. So here we go. The first thing that we are going to react to on this Monday today, we got a couple clips here. None of them too long. First up is Bill O'Reilly, President Trump's lawsuit battle. So he's going to go over all of the lawsuits that President Trump currently has against him. I believe it's 125, which is ridiculous. But nonetheless, like, Bill O'Reilly feels like most of them will be kicked. But they're still there. They're still in the court system right now. Then we're going to switch gears and go to Face the Nation. They have unpacking the legal process, unfolding the Venezuelan deportations. So we've had a couple of deportations the last couple of days. We saw massive amounts of people get on a plane and go over to different places. And Venezuela, Colombia, there were a couple other places. And some of these people on this side, mainly on the left, also judges and lawyers, representatives, are saying these people should have gotten some type of case, or they deserved a fair trial before they were just deported according to American law. I'm pretty sure Marco Rubio is going to have some argument against that. But we'll see. Then we're going to switch over to the Daily Signal. How AOC and Bernie Sanders took over the Democrat Party. This is funny. Really, they're saying it's not about like Democrat versus moderate, so I'm not sure if they're calling AOC and Bernie more this moderate party. But they've been on the road, you know, going to different states, different districts. They've even gone to some red districts. They're going to districts where Trump won, and they are no longer leading a campaign where transgenderism is on the forefront, and lots of you know, different controversial issues that the Republicans came in and basically said, yeah, we could kick all of this because you're killing America with it. But more so like, hey, we do not like the fact that the government has been handed over to billionaires and people with lots of money, with the working class being forgotten. So that's kind of their fight right now. And some commentators, news anchors, are saying that, you know, it's not the best, but it's a decent fight. You know, it's better than what we've been seeing previously. So I'll agree to that. You know, stop bombing Tesla, Democrats. That's crazy. That's really crazy. Hey, Hassan, how you doing, man? Nice to see you. Hey, do me a favor, hit that like button while you're here. Then we're gonna switch gears and we're gonna go over to the Simple Investor, Todd. I like his channel a lot. I often say that I will be reacting to him, and I grab a couple things from his channel. He's over in Canada, so shout out to Todd out in Canada. His channel's called The Simple Investor. So Todd's going to be talking about, will Mark Carney call an emergency act to postpone the Canadian election? I watched some of this, not all of it. I watched the rest of it with you guys. I'm not going to lie. Based on what Todd from The Simple Investor is saying, it sounds like that's what Mark Carney might do. It sounds like he might call an emergency act to postpone the election. And Todd made some good points as to why he would do it. He said this is something that Justin has done, that Trudeau did it in the past. And because, you know, Carney was, I believe, what was it, Trudeau's assistant or something like that? Any of my Canadians in the chat, let me know. But I know in American terms it would be Mark Carney was a part of Trudeau's administration. So that's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, he thinks he might pull the emergency act to postpone the election, and if he does that, Canada can end up with Mark Carney as their sitting prime minister. I know it's at least until 2026, but I'm not sure when. Any of you guys in the chat know, let me know. And then we're going to switch gears and we're going to jump over to Cliff Buell. Every single time I end a live stream over here on Cozy Corner, guys, I end it with a Christian clip. I'm a Christian. I like to share news about the gospel, about Jesus. So that's how we end our live stream over here every single day. So with that being said, guys, welcome, guys. Welcome to Cozy Corner TV. I am your host, Kieran Smith. Call me Q. And we on the corner. We on the corner, y'all. So let's go ahead and get Bill O'Reilly started. I got a quick live today. I kind of got to hurry up. So let's jump in and see what Bill's talking about as far as President Trump's lawsuit battle.
At this point, there are more than 125 lawsuits filed against the Trump administration. The tactic is obvious. Paralyze the administration so it can't do anything. Now I'm going to run down 3 of the lawsuits. Remember, 125. I'm going to tell you how absurd they are. And then I'm going to tell you how this has to stop and who could stop it. Is that fair enough? Now, I always advise you watch the No Spin News and listen on the radio with a pen and pad. Okay. First lawsuit is Schilling versus Trump. All right. This is Emily Schilling, U.S. Naval personnel, 19 years. She's trans.
Yep.
You remember that President Trump said no trans in the U.S. military. He's the commander-in-chief. That's an executive order. Now there's a lawsuit in the Western District of Washington. Why? Because the judge there is far left. He doesn't have jurisdiction, by the way, and the case will get tossed.
Yeah, probably.
But it's there. The lawsuit is there. Okay? Now, lawsuit's filed. The Trump lawyers come in. The judge makes a ruling. The Trump lawyers appeal the ruling. That's how it goes, but it takes time. Okay? Now, the commander-in-chief has an absolute right to order the military to be configured the way he wants it to be configured. All right? We go back to President Clinton. Don't ask, don't tell.
Yep.
You can be gay, but you can't talk about being gay.
Oh, yeah.
That was Clinton's executive order.
Yep.
And it stood for more than 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Until Obama knocked it out. So before Clinton, you couldn't be in the military if you were gay. They found out, you were booted.
Yeah, no, that's crazy because Bill O'Reilly is actually making a really good point here when he says that. And I did listen to this part and I thought to myself, oh man, he makes a good point there when he says that the president can configure the military to how he wants to do it. And it's true. Bill Clinton did have Don't Ask, Don't Tell in place at least for a decade, definitely more. And there was nothing to it. It was in place. It was an executive order that Bill Clinton put in place, and it stood there for 10 years. So Bill O'Reilly makes a good point when he says, President Trump, if he can do that, and Bill Clinton can do that, and it can stay in place well over a decade, then President Trump can say, hey, no persons that are transgendering are allowed to serve in the military. And we go for just Clinton's order. He makes a really good point. So I'm like, man, Bill made a great point when he brought that up. I can't argue with him there.
Dishonorable discharge. So Clinton wrote an executive order, said no, and the order stood. So if Clinton can do that, Trump can certainly say no trans, because it's precedent.
Yep.
Okay. The second lawsuit. This is USAID dismantled. It's not dismantled. So there are 8 lawsuits because of Doge. Doge went into the United States aid unit, which receives guidance from the Secretary of State Department, but it's independent, and it has to be knocked out by Congress. Trump can't knock it out. But Trump hasn't knocked it out. There are 300 people working for USAID. But all of their expenditures, because they were so outrageous, Elon Musk exposed them, have been now subject to review. And the lefties don't want that. So they've sued. They'll lose. Because the President of the United States is the absolute authority to stop fraud. That's it. He's a chief executive officer, law enforcement officer of the land.
Yep.
That's his executive power. If USAID is sending millions of dollars to the country of Sri Lanka for some insane thing, the president says no, the power to do that.
Yep.
Okay, that's number 2. All right, number 3 is the deportation. Now, Trump made a mistake saying that the judge who ordered the stop for the criminal minors should be impeached. The president should not have done that. And the Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts, scolded President Trump. Because you did.
Hold on, guys. I'm going to run that back. I want to hear something again. Guys, do me a favor. Hit that like button while you're in the chat for me. It takes 1 second, guys, and it's free.
The Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts, scolded President Trump. because you disagree.
Roberts.
Now, Trump made a mistake saying that the judge who ordered the stop for the criminal wireless should be impeached.
Oh.
The president should not have done that. And the Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts, scolded President Trump. Because you disagree with a judge doesn't mean he should be impeached. But again, this is not going to be successful for the lefties or this judge who held it up. Why? Because the president has designated the group Tren de Aragua from Venezuela, a criminal gang, as terrorists.
Yeah.
U.S. government can shoot them. We're doing a favor deporting them. They could shoot them, just like we did with ISIS, because of that designation.
Yep.
They'll take an organ and wipe them out. And that is a law that was passed after 9/11 and signed by Bush the Younger. By the books. So Trump's not shooting them, he's deporting them. And the judge goes, oh, I want to see, well, okay. Then the White House lawyers go in, appeal that. But John Roberts, Supreme Court Justice, should have taken the case right there.
Yeah.
So the Supreme Court is going to take a look at it and put an end to this. Because everybody knows what's happening. The left-wing activists are seeking liberal judges to stop everything Trump's trying to do. The Supreme Court knows that. Stop it. You have the power to stop it. And it'll eventually happen, and all the things I just told you will come true. Trump will win all of those cases. But what the left is hoping is it just drains and drains and drains and drains and demoralizes, and the left-wing press is going to prop it all up. And that's what's happening. And that's enough. Well, thank you for watching.
And that's what's the sad thing, because what Bill O'Reilly is saying, the sad thing is that all it's going to do is drain and drain and drain. And, you know, I remember President Trump mentioning on Joe Rogan's podcast that, when he first got in office, the first two things on his mind was, other than running the country, was survival. He's like, that's the way that I pretty much had to walk into there because of the way that they were attacking me. So it's kind of sad that the left liberals want to see this, all of this stuff unfold and happen and bring all of these cases, 125 lawsuits against the President of the United States. I've never heard such a ridiculousness. But it's pretty sad that they just want to see this drain and drain and drain and drain him, not realizing that he's their president too. He's watching over the country and governing the country for them as well. And it's just sad to see at this point. I don't really have a lot of words for the Democrats other than if they don't make some changes in about I would say 6 months to a year, if we don't see a 180, they're probably not going to take the presidency. So switching gears, guys, we're going to jump over to Face the Nation. They covered unpacking the legal process unfolding the Venezuelan deportations. So some of these deportations involved the gang that Bill O'Reilly was just talking about. And they also involve some individuals that people believe, hey, these individuals did not have a criminal history and they were wrongfully deported. So you have some lawyers, some activists coming out and fighting for those individuals as well. So we're going to jump right in and we're going to take a look at what Face the Nation has to say about some of these deportations.
We return now to the Venezuelan deportation case, and for what's next, we're joined by our Justice Department correspondent, Scott McFarland, and our immigration reporter, Camilo Montoya Galvez. It's good to have you both here. Camilo, you did some extraordinary reporting this week and obtained the names of the migrants who were sent to El Salvador. That's information that the administration refused to share with the federal judge, but you got it. What did you learn?
We're still investigating every single case on this list of 238 Venezuelan men who were sent to El Salvador to be in prison there, but this is what we know. We know that according to court filings and also our own findings here at CBS News, some of the people on this list do have criminal histories in the U.S. or abroad in countries like Peru, Chile, and Colombia, but we also know that according to the government, many of these people do not have any criminal record in the U.S., and we have received documents from lawyers and attorneys and also the family family members of the deportees who say that these people, some of them, do not have any criminal history in the US, but the administration is accusing all of them of being part of this transnational gang known as Tren de Aragua. But how that accusation is being made is at the center of the story. The administration says they have used intelligence and other techniques to identify these people as suspected TDA members, but their relatives and their lawyers say that some of these men were identified as TDA simply because of tattoos.
And
Yep.
that is really where we get to the
Because of
legal
tattoos.
nub of this argument is, can you, as Senator Paul was saying, bypass the right to a day in court on the basis of someone having some tattoos? So Scott, the Trump administration is gonna have this appeal tomorrow, as I understand it. You were in federal court Friday when the judge said it was, quote, awfully frightening how the administration stretched the law. They are looking for this fight.
There's two
Why?
different fights they're looking for. The legal is one of them. They're going to be in the appeals court tomorrow. They'll go to the Supreme Court potentially, eventually, trying to consolidate power to make it an 18th century reality right now where you can expel people who are locked up currently on U.S. soil without having to go through the courts, even though the courts are trying to catch mistakes and make sure nobody's scooped up erroneously.
Even though you could deport them anyhow.
You can still deport them
See,
anyhow.
I just don't like the fact that Scott's saying people are in court and can still. I'm like, Scott, let's also be transparent and say that these are not American citizens, because it could, off the bat, it can sound crazy to just anybody. Like, oh, who are you deporting? It's like, dude, we're not doing this to American citizens. We're doing this to people who possibly came into the country the wrong way, which is already a crime just to enter the wrong way. So I just wish he would be a little bit more transparent there when he says that.
Now, that's one fight they're looking to fight. There's also the political one, Margaret. There is so much political upside
Right.
to all of this for the Trump administration. And you heard that from the National Security Advisor a few moments ago when he told you this is a DC distinction, that the administration is not exactly concerned about looking too aggressive in deporting suspected gang members. There's all kinds of wins there. And then there's the other one, Margaret, the villainization of Washington, D.C. federal judges, which can galvanize the conservative base and the Trump base. And you saw that Friday in the courtroom with the judge, James Boasberg, pushing back on the president's allegations that he just wants to set these gang members free. The judge said, they're still locked up. You can deport them the normal way without invoking this 18th century law. Let's see how much more pushback there is from the president to this judge. There was more overnight on Truth Social.
Yes, he's spoken about it. He's posted about this judge raising other concerns. Camilo, though, you actually have reported out what was done behind the scenes to bring this all to a head, to set up this fight. What did you learn?
What I can tell you is that based on conversations with DHS sources, the administration was actively preparing for this operation well before the president actually signed this proclamation, unbeknownst to the public last Friday, before the White House actually published the actual proclamation on Saturday, March 15, and before those planes took
do it
office.
as quickly as
That's
possible.
right. They staged a roundup across the country of suspected TDA members and transfer those people to a Texas detention center. And by the time the judge held the first emergency hearing on this case, there were already two.
I'm gonna go as far as to say they're not being that transparent. A suspected, I mean, you don't just get sent to a deportation. You don't just get sent to a deportation prison just on suspicion. There's a good chance that they were already investigating you in the background. They already have some information on you. So it's like, I don't mind Face the Nation, but the lack of transparency could be a little grotesque sometimes. It could be a little grotesque.
Planes in the air and another one ready to take off.
Knowing that they might have to face a fight back
Yes.
in the courts. Scott, the president has issued at least 3 executive orders that we have clocked impacting private law firms who represented clients at odds with President or then Mr. Trump. That's bad for private business. One of those law firms cut a deal, $40 million. What's the impact here?
I talked to one of the lawyers who's been targeted by one of these actions. He says they're trying to take me off the playing field. They're trying to take others off the playing field as we continue to challenge the administration in court. A chilling effect to make it harder to file these lawsuits that have been the firewall so far in the Trump administration. But there's a distinction in the latest round of actions, prohibiting these law firms based in Washington from doing business in government buildings or with government employees. That is a death sentence for a Washington, D.C. law firm. In fact, one of those firms, Perkins Coie, the ones challenging this in court, said as much to the judge. This would kill us. And the judge here in Washington has for now held off on the Trump executive action to strip Perkins Coie. But we'll see how long that protection lasts.
And this has knock-on effects for others seeking legal services, but also, as you said, makes them hard to just function.
Especially the stripping of security clearances,
Yes.
Margaret, that makes it harder for a whistleblower at the FBI or the CIA or the Pentagon to find a lawyer to blow the whistle. Makes it possible such whistles will not be blown.
Right, because they need
That's
to
not
seek
true.
counsel who have ability to deal with classified info.
Mind you, this is also counsel that assisted people like Hillary Clinton, Joe Biden. These are not people that are just opposed to President Trump. These are people that also broke the law in ways that he always says, I don't understand how these people are not in jail. I don't understand how these people didn't get locked up. If it was me, I would have been in jail. And he makes a good point about that.
Camilo, the administration announced Friday they're revoking legal status of 500,000 migrants who came here legally from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, and Venezuela during President Biden's terms. This is another fight they wanted to have. But
Okay, and by the way, legally is subjective, right? So if they just got on like some app and they filled out a couple of things and then they just ended up in the United States with a card full of money, that's not the way that you do that.
the stated intention is to go after the worst of the worst and deport them. Why focus on people who bothered to be here legally?
Well, the administration would argue that the Biden administration abused its immigration executive authority to create this program without Congress, and that the people who came here under this policy are undercutting American workers, and that they are essentially illegal immigrants as well. And now they are turning them into illegal immigrants by stripping them of their legal status, their work permits, or deportation protections. Right now, they have for the next 30 days a chance to self-deport through a smartphone app. If they don't do that, DHS is warning that they will be found, arrested, and deported from the country. And this crackdown on immigration by the administration is also extending to other parts of the immigration system. We also know that the administration is suspending funding, federal funding, for legal services providers and lawyers who help migrant children who have left federal custody or who are still in federal custody and who are facing deportation.
And this is all intentional, that taking funding away even from migrant
Yes,
kids?
this administration does not believe that federal funds should be used for people who are in the country illegally or without legal permission.
Gentlemen, you're gonna be busy. Thank you for breaking it all down for us. I appreciate it.
Through the technology.
Yeah, I just wish they would be a little bit more transparent, but I wanted to cover that just so we can get, the other side of things. I like to be a balanced person. I'm not afraid to look on both sides, of the spectrum, and it's fine with me. I don't like the lack of transparency sometimes, and that's on a lot of mainstream media networks, so sometimes we kind of have to just deal with that to hear the story and be able to read between the lines at the same time. But I definitely don't think this is all just, on a maybe, on a I think so, on a these are possible people who are legal. I'm pretty sure that these people have already done their vetting. Tom Homan has said that. Plenty of people of Secretary of State Marco Rubio has said that. Pete Hegseth has said that, Secretary of Defense. So it's kind of just frustrating to hear them not be so transparent. And this is the reason why the Democrats were going to get blamed for the shutdown. Because the American people can see that they lack transparency. Especially the left-wing media outlets. They do the same exact thing. So switching over to the Daily Signal, guys, we are going to take a look at, they covered how AOC and Bernie Sanders took over the Democratic Party. I like the Daily Signal. Sometimes I watch Victor Hansen on here, and I often cover him on this channel from the Daily Signal. I think he does a great job. A lot of them do, but we're going to take a look at this now. Shout out to the Daily Signal. They have 711,000 subscribers, so go check out their channel if you guys have a chance. So let's take a look at, it says the new left might not be Democrats. So let's take a look at what Bernie and AOC have been up to.
Sam Host, Dina Obadala joins us now with Bradley Devlin, who's politics editor for the Daily Signal. Welcome to you both. There's a lot of angles we could take this from. Dean, you take it first on if Bernie and AOC is kind of the answer for the left right now. What would you say?
I think there where the energy is, it's not about progressive versus moderate. I think the media is missing it. I talk to callers who are Democrats every night on my show. I have that privilege. It's between fighters versus people who want to find common ground with Trump or actually help him with his agenda. The Democratic base wants fighters. They want people who are going to stand up to Donald Trump and the MAGA agenda, protect Medicaid, protect Social Security. The list goes on, protect our Democratic Republic. So it's not really left versus moderate. That's just not the reality of what I'm hearing night in and night out.
All right, let's talk about that. Bradley, what do you think? So, as I said, Bernie Sanders has been saying, all right, we don't need everybody to run as Democrats, they can run as independents. But what do you think of what Dean said? Because I've seen some Republicans saying, you know what, this is perfect for us. We'd love to have these people who are associated with the far left out there making the case. And Dean says there's more to it. What do you say?
I think for Republicans, of course, figures like AOC have been massively beneficial to their coffers. But I will say this, I have a lot of respect for President Donald Trump because he blew open the Overton window in the Republican Party. I have that same respect for Senator Bernie Sanders and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I know people like to write them off as fringe folks, but they have really gotten their priorities into the Democratic mainstream. Look at Bernie Sanders. He was one of the only people advocating for universal health care. In 2020 and 2024, nearly every candidate was saying we want to have a socialized medical system. AOC and her Green New Deal, those priorities made their way into several major pieces of Biden legislation. So these folks, once thought of as outsiders, they've really made connections with the Democratic base, and those connections have turned into real power within their Democratic conferences or caucusing with Democrats in the case of independent Bernie Sanders in Washington, D.C.
Here's the kind of thing they've been saying in this tour. Again, this is day 2, but this is how they put it in terms of what they're sounding the alarm about. Take a listen to both of them. And I want to talk and pick up, Dean, on the earlier point you made about the left and the moderates. Here's how they sound.
We need to be honest about where we are, because we are witnessing an oligarchy in America.
They are like heroin addicts. They need more and more and more. And if they destroy Social Security and Medicaid to get what they want, that is what they will do.
The last part probably resonates with a lot of people, wherever you come from, especially working class voters, the part about Social Security and Medicaid. When you start using words like oligarchy and all of this, to go back to your earlier point about left and moderate, I'm not sure who that resonates with. I mean, and whether that helps the Democratic brand. But pick up on your points.
First of all, what was Bernie talking about with the heroin? That's what I wanted to know. I'm not sure it was like big money, but that was kind of jarring. I'm not sure. If he's talking about the wealthy, what's kind of remarkable is through time, the uber wealthy, it's insatiable, their appetite for more wealth. People don't get it in the Gilded Age to today, which is the new Gilded Age,
right,
where the wealthy have an inordinate amount of power. So if that's what he meant, I'm down with that. The heroin part, I'm not sure. Look, it's on the left and the right, if you see polling, we want big money out of politics. We want our voice to be heard. The overlap between Trump and Bernie, and I didn't expect it was going to be when I learned it was, so fighting for the working class people receiving that. I don't like Donald Trump at all, but people perceive him as fighting for the working class. Same thing with Bernie. So oligarchy or not, forget that term. It's about taking the power from the wealthy, giving it back to the people. That's where Democrats should be, because that's where Republicans have been, oddly enough, even though they're actually a billionaire's role that are in the cabinet under Donald Trump, the wealthiest cabinet in the history of our republic.
So AOC just took the stage there. This is Greeley, Colorado. Again, day 2 of their tour. I guess the question would be, Bradley, if they're both going after the same crowd, right, theoretically, and we saw that going back to 2016, some overlap between Bernie and Trump. At first people said it was crazy, but then people started to realize what was going on with it. But the policy proposals are different, and you wonder, and I wonder, and I want to get both of your takes, we'll start with Bradley on this, whether Trump is more in tune with what those people want to do policy-wise, even if both are trying to go after that crowd. In other words, working class voters, who are they more in line with?
Yeah, I think the major problem with Bernie Sanders' platform in 2016 and then in 2020 was his complete reversal on the immigration issue. In 2015, before he declared, he called open borders a Koch brothers conspiracy. Koch brothers are not people of the left. Bernie Sanders, the old Bernie Sanders, had a B+ rating from the NRA. He was anti-unfettered immigration. He really took that immigration policy seriously, because it's not just where we send our jobs overseas, it's also the labor market. Is that being undercut by the importation of migrants? And Bernie Sanders' answer until he decided to cozy up with the corporate Democratic Party was no, we shouldn't have unfettered immigration. So to see him switch on that issue, I think that gave Trump a lot of credibility with the working class. I think the working class sees the effect on their wages. Look at the BLS reports showing that.
And we can call it what we want. Like Bernie Sanders, he's an older guy. We would call him like an OG of the Democratic Party. But with that being said, he's still drawing crowds. Like and even a lot of news anchors are like, man, Bernie's out there, and I mean, he drew a crowd of 5,000, 4,000, 9,000. Like he's drawing crowds. So there's not. I can tell you right now, I haven't seen Hakeem Jeffries out there with a crowd like that. I haven't seen Adam Schiff out there with a crowd like that. This is I haven't seen Chuck Schumer out there with a crowd like that. So really, they should be thankful for Bernie and AOC right now, because honestly, without them, I don't know where the Democratic Party will stand. Hopefully this will take some traction, because as you guys know, I've said it before, I'd rather be bipartisan, and we can have a third party in the United States. That's great. I wouldn't mind if there was an independent or a moderate party, but I definitely don't want one, right? I definitely don't think we should be a country of just one party.
And a lot of the wage gains that the United States experienced under the Biden administration actually went to migrant populations, illegal and legal. That's not good for the American worker. They think it's a raw deal. They think this globalization raw deal has been perpetrated on them for 40 years. Right. And so a lot of them did gravitate towards Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump, and now Donald Trump has the upper hand.
What do you think of that, Dean, that it might be immigration? I think the overlap is on trade, to Bradley's point. There is a lot of overlap there between the far left and Trump on trade. But on immigration, he does have an advantage in most of the polling, and maybe he has the advantage with those types of voters there. What would you say?
Look, I don't think immigration is an issue that's moving people right now. I think the economy is, consumer sentiment's at the lowest level it's been in 3 years. Right. I just had 2 Democratic candidates on who are running for Congress in the special election in Florida, April 1st. I asked them, what are voters coming up to you about? They said overwhelmingly, the economy, tariffs, and veterans, Republican veterans, are coming up to them and saying, they're taking my benefits. They're slashing 80,000 workers from the VA. These are real. This is not kitchen.
I can see that one. The tariffs, though. Right, so what are they saying about tariffs?
Tariffs are freaking them out because they understand that's a tax. So it's a 25% tax. If it gets applied the way Trump talks about, and reciprocally, they are fearful of the unknown, right? The unknown is big taxes on things, on goods, when the economy is slowing, objectively speaking. That's not political spin.
But that's like a free market, argument that would be the opposite of like a Bernie Sanders AOC. It's just kind of funny how things are flip-flopping here, it seems like.
Real people don't think about free market versus tariffs, protection. They think about, can I afford to put food on the table for my family? I think April 1st should see something very remarkable in these 2 districts. They're solid red. Republicans won by 30 points. Matt Gaetz and Mike Walton's thing. Maybe you see an upset. Maybe you see Democrats get within 2 or 3 points. That would say a lot to the nation. We'll see. Or maybe it doesn't. Maybe it's 30-point blowout. What do you see on April 1st?
Because the numbers have been brutal for the party, for the Democrats. We talked about Trump's approval going down a few points, but nothing compared to where the Democrats are.
Nothing at all. Trump's approval rating, they're talking about it going down a few points. I say it's subjective. It depends on what mainstream media outlet is reporting it. But nonetheless, even if it did drop down from 51 to 49, the Democrat favorability rating has been the lowest in history. I think the lowest I've seen it at was 18%. I think it's climbed since then. I've seen 21%. And I think the highest fairly recently I saw around 29. So it's starting to come up, but the Democratic Party, their favorability numbers aren't doing great at all. And even with Donald Trump's numbers dropping, the 2 points that it did drop, he's still nowhere as low as they are.
It's a brand, right? All right, Bradley, finish us up here.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see something particularly close in Florida just because the state has trended so far red. Also, Democrats, as you mentioned, Connell, so demoralized at this point. And I think that's what they see in AOC and Bernie Sanders. They see people who can reignite, reinvigorate the Democratic base. Senator Schumer, I think, was right to keep the government open, but he is going to have to deal with this for quite some time. Members of his own conference wanting to buck him. A lot of pressure from the House of Representatives telling them that they can win a shutdown battle like that. At the end of the day, I think Schumer did the right thing, and Schumer now needs to go home with his allies and convince the base that they can stay energized and stay up with all of these lawsuits, right? We're fighting as much as we can in Congress without being irresponsible electorally. We need to rely on our apparatuses in the judiciary or in the courts to make sure that we have a check on this executive. That's my argument if I'm Chuck Schumer. I don't think you're going to see that argument take for the Democratic base. I think Dean's absolutely right. They want fighters, man.
That's what they want. And the base, yeah, that's what the activist base wants right now. Thank you, Dean, and thank you, brother. I tell you what, look, if we can go back to AOC, bring that shot up full for a moment here. We have a lot more coming up.
I think they make a good point, when they're talking about, Chuck Schumer needs to go back and kind of like talk about, where he wants to go as far as like his party's leadership. One thing I didn't like to see amongst the Democrats were really a lot of back and forth. Chuck Schumer saying, me and Hakeem Jeffries have this plan, we have this plan. And then you have Hakeem Jeffries in the interview and someone asking him about his leader, hey, do you support Chuck Schumer? And he goes, next question, which I thought was extremely disrespectful and distasteful because we can already see so much disarray in the Democratic Party. So I'm like, Hakeem, why don't you just answer the question? And then you have AOC, she's being interviewed by mainstream media and they're asking her, how did you feel about, Chuck Schumer's vote? And she's saying, like, I think we really have to take a look at leadership. I think we need to make some decisions in the near future. Jasmine Crockett saying, I think the Democrats need to take a look at if Chuck Schumer is the guy to be in charge right now, like right at this minute. So I think it's just pretty sad to see how much disarray we can kind of see in the Democratic Party. And I am hoping that, there can be some revival there because, like I said, I'd like to see two parties there, not just one. If we can get the independent party in there, that's even better. Why not three? But definitely not be a country of just one party. Hey, you guys do me a favor, hit the like button while you're in the chat, guys. Hit that like button. It takes 1 second and it's free. So I'm going to jump over to our AOC and Bernie Sanders, the last best hope for the Democratic Party.
As the Democratic Party flounders in the face of the seemingly unstoppable Trump 2.0 administration, two figures have emerged that could save the party from its endless bouts of infighting and lack of clear direction. Once marginalized in the party as progressive, left-wing, and anti-establishment, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders now appear to be leading the fight to take on Donald Trump and his agenda. At the recent Fighting Oligarchy event, AOC presented the infighting in the Democratic Party as a struggle between those willing to take on Trump and those who are calling for a more cautious approach. In doing so, AOC and Sanders are reaching out to a much wider base of Democratic Party voters, beyond younger, more progressive voters. Anyone and everyone who is angry with Trump's policies, his dismantling of the federal government, his courting of billionaires and millionaires, his endless tariffs and trade wars, are welcome to join their movement. The messaging is no longer focused on issues such as abortion, climate change, or the war in Gaza. Instead, Sanders and AOC are slamming Trump and his allies for betraying the working class and giving power to an unelected group of billionaires who they say are acting like oligarchs. Our fight is to make sure we remain a democracy. One person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections, said Sanders at a recent rally. Their rallies and speeches are drawing huge numbers across the U.S., even in states and districts that voted for Trump. Two factors could explain this popularity. One, with Elon Musk's Doge taking center stage in Trump's remaking of the American government, Sanders and AOC's rhetoric about an unelected oligarchy may not appear quite so abstract and figurative to many Americans.
No, not now, especially watching some of the stuff that Doge has been doing since Elon has actually been in place. It's more abstract for people. It's more real. They can see things actually happening. This is why you have mayors and governors and people from Tennessee saying things like, I have people coming up to me and saying they're cutting my benefits, they're cutting my veterans' benefits. A lot of it seems more abstract. And I'm going to react to things like this because regardless of which way I might agree with more, I still like to look at the broad spectrum of things. So I'm never going to just stay far left side, far right side. I'm still going to look on both sides of it. And as I said, I like to see America have a bipartisan government. So I would like to see the Democrats kind of, pull themselves up by their bootstraps and get it together a little bit, because I don't like, what I've seen, just for the simple fact of it's going to, lead America for the next couple years to be a pretty conservative country, which literally, it doesn't bother a lot of people, But again, why have the other party if they're not putting up any type of good fight? If they're not advocating for anything real concerning the American people or the working class, like Bernie Sanders and AOC are saying.
Second, the Democrats have struggled to present a united front against the Republicans and Trump, whether it be in Congress or in the various town hall meetings where their constituents are asking them hard questions. This apparent lack of effective opposition may have left Democrats and even moderate voters feeling somewhat helpless. This is where Sanders and AOC's oligarchy and working class push seems to be having the most effect. What will finally come of this push remains to be seen. Not all Democratic leaders are united behind AOC and Bernie Sanders, with many seeing them as activists fighting from safe Democratic seats. Regardless, some left-leaning Democratic supporters now seem to be hoping that AOC and Bernie Sanders will lead the fight to take on Trump's MAGA movement and its successor in the 2028 elections.
Yeah, and you have some people saying like, hey, what AOC and Bernie Sanders are doing, this is pretty much the last hope, for the Democratic Party. And they're hoping that people like a Chuck Schumer or Hakeem Jeffries, Adam Schiff, like these guys will jump on their side, and instead of it being about, Trump bad, it's not gonna work. There's a good amount of American people that put him in place. His approval rating has been pretty high. And when I say pretty high, even it dropping from something like a 61% to a 59 or to a 54, this is still a pretty high approval rating compared to where the Democrats are sitting right now. So we have to keep that in mind. So maybe what Bernie and AOC are doing will gain some traction at some point, and it will attract, it will attract a new crowd. It seems to be working so far, because instead of all of those other issues they were putting on the forefront of the campaign when they were running back before November of last year, now it seems like it's more like, hey, our government has been giving over to billionaires. We're fighting against this oligarchy that President Trump has put into place. Like the White House and the country has been handed over to billionaires for the working class people to be forgotten about. So it seems like that approach is working better for them versus talking about some of the other things they were last year. So, by all means, let's see, I would like a bipartisan government. So let's see, where that takes them. And hey, if not the Democrats, then maybe from the moderate side or the independent side, someone can come up. But Bill O'Reilly made a great point when he said from the other parties, meaning more than likely independent, no one's ever really been able to put the capital up in order to campaign properly. People don't really realize this, but RFK had more votes than Kamala Harris did. So that's why it was so problematic for me to see Kamala Harris just become the next person right after Joe Biden, and there were no type of primaries, no type of nothing put in place, so we can maybe see a different presidential candidate going against President Trump. So I think this standpoint that they're taking right now, Bernie and AOC, is interesting. I think that it's working out better for them because it was very out of touch with what the people were talking about. Now, them seeing things like Elon in the Oval Office, is giving them more fuel. You see, he handed it over to a billionaire. He's standing right there in the Oval Office with him. So I think right now where they're going with things, it may work out for them. We got Gavin Newsom on his podcast. So we see the Democrats trying, to figure something out now. And it's not just all Trump bad, Trump bad, Trump bad. And I'm hoping that what they're doing works out for them. I'm hoping that, next year we'll see some, I believe it's some Senate seats go up for grabs. And that's in 2026. And then after that, in 2028, we'll have another presidential election. So we'll see where things land. So changing gears a little bit, guys, we're going over a little bit because we're going out the country now to the simple investor. Shout out to you, Todd. Will Mark Carney call emergency act to postpone Canadian election? I've mentioned this on my channel numerous times. Canada is my second most watched country on my channel, so I do my best to keep up with Canadian politics. I am a fan currently. I don't think Canada has started their elections yet. I don't believe so. That's why this was a video Todd put out a couple of days ago. I think it was just 4 days ago, he put this out, asking the question of, will Mark Carney pull the Emergency Act to postpone the Canadian election? In case anybody is wondering, why would Mark Carney even consider doing that? He was a part of what we would say in America's administration cabinet, he was a part of Justin Trudeau's, set up his government, his cabinet, whatever have you, that they call it over in Canada. I know a lot of people were questioning, Todd's perspective on things, but he did make sure that he mentioned that the way someone gets elected is that, the people have to vote for an MP, and as long as that MP receives enough votes, they become the leader of the party. So, because I guess it was a perfect recipe, Mark Carney's a member of parliament. He got the votes that he needed, so he was the one that was able to step up and replace Trudeau. Todd doesn't really care for this because he looks at Mark Carney like an unelected official, which I could understand that totally, Todd. See where you're coming from. Feel the groaning pain. Feel the groanings, man. So at the end of the day, I want us to take a look at this because I've really been trying to sound the alarm to my Canadian friends. No, I am not far right. No, I'm not far left. None of that stuff. But it's more about taking a look at the two people who are running, what they stand for, where their moral and ethics system stands. What this person wants to bring to the country. Are they trying to make lives better, or are things going to get more stressful? So that's always my concern when I'm looking at two candidates. There's no secret, I've been a pretty big fan of Pierre Poilievre. I think he's going to be somebody who's good for Canada, and I think Canada should pay attention to him. Just like I have been saying time and time again over here for the Democrats, they are struggling with putting up what I think is a really good candidate. Some people will give me pushback on this. I know some Democrats will, but I think John Fetterman's a better choice for them. He aligns with President Trump on a lot of things, but he also aligns with himself on his own things. He has his own beliefs, his own things that mean something to him. So I think he's a good candidate, and I'm hoping that this is something that he is a person that the Democrats in the United States will pay attention to as the election in 2028 approaches. So let's take a look at Todd's channel, The Simple Investor, and let's see what he's saying about if Mark Carney will call the Emergency Act to postpone the Canadian election.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act to supplement provincial and territorial capacity to address the blockades and occupations.
Welcome to the Simple Podcast. I'm Todd C. Slater. When I see that repeat of what the Prime Minister did to Canadians, it still leaves me speechless. As a Canadian, 3 years ago, we watched everybody's rights being taken away, and yet they wanted to call, people that were peaceful Canadians criminals. My problem with all of this is that...
So I believe Todd talking about some protests that happened in Canada. I'm not sure if they were surrounded around COVID. I think they were. But it was some pretty bad protests that took place over there. And this is where some Canadians they had the right to protest, I'm assuming like we do, were protesting. And it was really crazy because they talked about it on Bill Maher show. Bill Maher and Jordan Peterson spoke about what happened over in Canada. And Jordan Peterson was, I imagine in the moment he was livid about it when it happened, but you could tell he was pretty disgusted with it. Just how, they were like freezing people's bank accounts and taking rights away from Canadians and kind of just throwing them in jail. And I was like surprised by the things I was hearing. I was like, what? That was happening over there? So, Jordan Peterson was not a big fan of that. And it's no secret, he has not been a big fan of Trudeau throughout the years.
If one Prime Minister could do that, what could the new Prime Minister do? And this is where we need to have a pretty serious conversation today about what our future is going to look like. Again, as a Canadian, a very proud, working Canadian, we were taken advantage of by a governing system. And today, all of a sudden, now it's okay to wave the Canadian flag, where 3 years ago, people were saying they were triggered by the Canadian flag. I'm insulted as a Canadian that, that was the case. And has it gotten any better? No. Has there been any true apologies made for that? No. And yet we've got a new Prime Minister in place, and again, not elected as far as I'm concerned. When I take a look at the people that actually were part of the convoy, these were people that made the sacrifice to turn around and make a statement for Canadians. And, we can never, forget what happened to Canadians. The fact is that today, our government is now going to control the narrative. And could we possibly be at the mercy now of the new, and again, I really struggle calling him a prime minister. And I know some of you get pretty upset and say, hey Todd, you don't know how the Canadian system works. Yes, I do, very well, in fact. Thanks very much for that. The truth is that this guy never faced an election. And I know a lot of people sit there and say, yeah, but you don't elect the prime minister in Canada.
No, you don't.
Don't kid yourself, that's all a bunch of BS. The fact is that if you want a Liberal elected, you're gonna vote for the Liberal MP in your municipality because you want this guy to be the prime minister.
And MP just stands for Member of Parliament, so that's what he's saying.
Nobody has done that, okay? And yet,
and I think Todd makes a good point. He said if you want a Liberal to be in power, you'll go for the MP of the Liberal Party, and you'll vote for the MP in your municipality, the Member of Parliament. So I get what he's saying. He's like, and no one did that. So I think he makes a great point there. He's like, no one voted for this guy, yet he's the sitting prime minister. No real people voted for this guy.
We now hear, and this is where the thing that I'm not sure about, is that he's sitting there saying, Carney will ask the Governor General to dissolve Parliament Sunday and call for an election. Now, isn't this kind of convenient? Because Jagmeet Singh, leader of the NDP, said that when Parliament resumes, which is going to be, just so you know, Monday, so the next day, he was going to call for a non-confidence vote. Well, we know that he's completely backtracked on that. He's hopped into bed with the Liberals, as he always has, and so we know he's backtracking on that. So now we've got Prime Minister Mark Carney now declaring to CBC, and again, if you want to take their word on it, that potentially he's going to call for an election. And the election could be April 28th, May 2nd, whatever the date's going to be. The truth is he's going to try to say that he's going to call the election. But here's a couple things that I think we need to think about. What else could he do on the run-up to the election day? Let's take a look.
And something that my government is going to do is to use all of the powers of the federal government, including the emergency powers.
Whoa!
Oh boy.
Did he just say what I think he said? Including the emergency powers. So what does that mean? Emergency powers? Gee, who did that? That's right. Justin Trudeau did. And so what would that mean to an election? Well, here's the other thing. Why would he turn around and put the Emergency Act into place? Well, let's take a look. The one thing that we're pretty sure is Trump is not screwing around. He's still going to hit us with some tariffs. Okay? Tariffs are part of business. Let's get over it.
Yep.
Canada has tariffs on U.S.
That's what I said.
U.S. has tariffs on Canada.
It's a part of business.
Hey, China just nailed Canada with 100% tariffs on things like seafood, canola oil. Like, it's the world happening. So when this gets
100%.
said, what do we think is going to happen after April 2nd when it becomes...
That's crazy. Todd, you need to buy your seafood from Maine. 100%. Oh, no. Yo, Japan is crazy.
What do we think is going to...
This headline says Trump still intends for reciprocal tariffs to kick in on April 2nd. White House says.
Happen after April 2nd when it comes into play. Could Mark Carney turn around and declare a state of emergency in Canada? Oh, I don't know. Financially? Yeah, might. He might consider us under the attack of the U.S. and turn around and make a declaration. So I hate having to make this prediction, but the guy that's leading Canada right now, I would not trust at all. And that's one of the things that, as Canadians...
Dude, if Todd's prediction comes through, that's wild. And I'm going to be even louder about Mark Carney if that happens. Because Todd is basically saying that because of Trump's tariffs, Mark Carney can put Canada in this state of emergency because he can say that they're under some sort of financial attack. I'm like, oh my goodness, over tariffs? That's crazy for him to do that. And that would leave him the Prime Minister of Canada probably at least until next year, Todd was saying, I think.
We almost become powerless other than our voice. But let's think about this. If Carney turns around and pulls the emergency lever, that means that we will not be having an election. And really, the soonest that we could have an election potentially would be in 2026. So he could bypass the whole November before. And in the end, we could get stuck with this guy for a lot longer and creating a lot more damage. Why would Carney actually decide to call an election now? Does he think he's that popular? I don't know, maybe he's really thrilled that Donald Trump said he'd rather work with the liberals. I don't know, but it's one of those things that we're going to watch very carefully, and I think you should too. I don't know as a Canadian where this is going to go. I know where we don't want it to go, and that's having this guy as the leader of the country. It's only going to be bad for Canadians. Hardworking, tax-paying, Canadian families. This guy's not going to be our leader. And for those of you that sit there and say, oh yeah, he's truly a Canadian. Is he really? 3 passports, 1 in Ireland because you know what, that's a good tax advantage there, 1 in Great Britain and 1 in Canada. Ask yourself this, how much time has Mark Carney actually spent in Canada over the last decade? Not as much as you think. But I can tell you, his car...
And Todd's not the only person to say that. There's been a couple of people that have said Mark Carney does not spend a lot of time in Canada.
Footprint sure tells us everything. And he's been all over the world and constantly doing it. So for a guy that's so concerned about the carbon footprint of people, hey Mark, you know what they came up with, especially during COVID? It's called Zoom. You know what? You don't have to hop on a jet to have a meeting with people. Perhaps you might want to take some of your own initiative and apply it to yourself and your family. Instead of running around the world, trying to sit there and act like a martyr and think that you're doing something for Canadians when you're only making it about yourself. I think the calling of an election is just that. He's making it about himself so that if he has to, he's going to pull that lever and screw Canadians once again. I'd love to hear your comments on this because it's getting pretty serious. And one of the things I always say as I wrap it up, make sure you watch out for your family, your friends, your children, the next generation. I'm Todd C. Slater. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you, Todd. We appreciate you. Yeah, man, that's pretty crazy. I think Todd is on point with a lot of things he's calling. He kind of reminds me of the people we have over here that were waving the red flags like, hey, you don't want to vote for Kamala Harris because of this reason. Hey, you make sure you pay attention to the election for this reason. So I think that he's spot on. I hope my friends in Canada are paying attention. It is scary how close and how congruent things are happening in Canada that I was seeing right before President Trump took office. So, I am really worried about Canada. I'm not going to lie. You guys should take a look at a lot of these interviews that are out here. You have the former Prime Minister of Britain. She literally said that she's hoping for a Pierre Poilievre win because if Mark Carney wins, he will take Canada in the same direction he took Britain, and Canada will be Puerto Rico with a passport. This is what then James Basile said before the former Prime Minister said that. So there's not a lot of people that have a lot of hope in this guy. There's not a lot of people who think he should be running the country. So I hope you guys are paying attention to that. I watched Pierre live last night. He did, I think, over here, I guess we would call it I guess you could say a pre-election rally, sort of. And, he had some people there, said some good things. The crowd seemed to be into him. I'm hoping he pulls bigger crowds, but from what I understand, things haven't really started just yet. So not switching gears too much, guys. We're going to jump over to Intellected. Shout out to him. He has 7.78 thousand subscribers. Small YouTube channel like mine. Shout out to him. I love the way he covers his snippets. He does a great job. Usually I can catch really good 4 to 10 minute snippets by him where he's really informative about what's happened, what's happening. He picked some great picks to point out. This actually came from Jordan Peterson and James Basile's conversation that I happen to watch. It's almost a 2-hour podcast, and they're talking about if Pierre can actually save Canada, and James chimes in on some of his thoughts about Pierre Poilievre. In case you guys don't know, James Basile is the co-founder of BlackBerry. So just think about the guy who's the face of BlackBerry. If you guys saw the movie, James Basile was in it, a character that was played as him. So let's take a look at what Jordan Peterson and James were talking about.
In this video, Jordan Peterson and his guest Jim discuss Pierre Poilievre. Let's turn our attention to the person who's the major contender for the position of Prime Minister at the moment, and that would be Poilievre. Now, you already said, and the Conservatives, you already said that you're stringently and consciously nonpartisan, not only in your attitudes, but also in your financing. And so we're presuming that you're attempting to evaluate both of these men and their ideas at the realm of competence and idea. So tell me about Poilievre. You've had some interaction with him. You've talked to some of his advisors about the issues that we've been describing. Tell me what you're concluding, what you're seeing.
Well, when I wrote that piece about we're all economic nationalists now, that was really a word to the neocons. That if you're a Friedmanite, then be a Friedmanite. Adjust to the facts on the ground. And I've recently heard some things that are encouraging that seem like the emergence of, and Mr. Poilievre does not owe us a full campaign yet because the campaign has not started. So my fulsome evaluation is to be done. But I think Carney's played his cards because he's in a campaign, right?
Yeah. Well,
he's written a book and he's done a campaign. So I assume that's his playbook, and Mr. Poilievre is imminent. If there's an election imminent, which I think there is. But he's done some green shoots, which intrigued me. He recently said, we need to take back control of our economy. We need to be sovereign, secure, and prosperous, or something like that. But the fact that the government has a role of taking back control of our destiny, and our security, and our sovereignty, and our prosperity, and our economic entity, not as protectionism, but to make us strong for a dangerous world and to make our companies strong going out to the world. Well, that's interesting. And then he has.
Well, you see this as somewhat of a radical departure from Canadian political maneuvering on both sides of the aisle over the last 30 years.
He's introducing the second leg. And then what I've heard, for the first time in 30 years, he has an industry critic named Rick Perkins who has said, we need to own our ideas, we need to control our data to build our companies. And nobody has said that. It was an interview about a month ago, and I'm like, oh, where'd that come from? And then he's had...
So where did it come from?
I think they're thinking. I think they're trying to think. They're trying to realize that there's two legs here. His trade critic, Ryan Williams, has been calling for updated trade strategies where we actually figure out how to project Canadian interests in these games where there's strategic behavior by nation states, which is encouraging because we should have had it 30 years ago. Nice to start now. Michelle Rempel's been talking about updated competition strategies where you don't just throw it as one bucket. You need to compete in domestic services more, but you need to support our global traders more. So one is a supporting them into the world. One is to compete away monopoly rents that hurt consumers. Again, that distinction has not been done for 30 years. And I've heard Michelle Rempel and Adam Chambers talk about helping Canadian companies grow for the kind of benefit and building more capacity in the civil service to deal with this change. So I see these as green shoots in what seems to be a loosely emerging Poilievre doctrine. We see the Carney doctrine. The green shoots
We know the Carney doctrine.
Yeah, we do, yeah.
Like, Values is a rather thorough book for all its failings.
Yeah.
People tend to do what they say they're going to do. So that's laid out.
Yeah.
You see the emergence of something approximating a Poilievre doctrine.
A two-legged race, and if we don't have a two-legged strategy, we will be subordinated, Puerto Rico without a passport. If we do have it, then the question is, are we effective in the capacity building of the political class in the civil service to actually perform while we've been atrophied in this realm for the better part of 30 years.
Yeah, you see, and even James Basile there, and sometimes they call him Jim, but Jim short for James. Even he's making a good point there of noticing that there is a Poilievre doctrine on the rise, and I'm glad that he can pick up on that because I can see that. You know, Pierre's doctrine is about sovereignty and independence and Canada being independent and Canada taking control, new trade strategies, you know, making them a real player in the game, if not more valuable player than they are currently. So I respect all of Pierre's stances. He reminds me much of President Trump. And, you know, people are like, oh, he's copying President Trump's way of, you know, rallying. And I'm like, by all means, if that's the person who he wants to look up to and he feels, or even not look up to, but say, hey, that guy has a lot of the ideas that I've been wanting to say out loud for some time that I haven't, then why not? Like, he has to win the heart of Canada, and there are a lot of Canadians that do like what President Trump is doing, and some don't. So I wish Pierre all the best. Okay, guys, here we are at the last clip of our live. I always end my live streams with a clip from Cliff Buell. Last name Buell. Shout out to you, Clip. Because of you, I can end my live streams with a Christian clip every night, every day. So I appreciate you and your content, man. He has 600. And where you at right now, Cliff? Because he's been growing substantially since we've been reacting to him. 641,000 subscribers. So we're gonna take a look at this clip here. It says Muslim here. Here's how Jesus claims to be God. An interaction between a man and a woman, and they are talking about Jesus and two different beliefs here about Jesus in Islam and in Christianity. So I knew this one would be good. So let's take a look at this conversation.
This Muslim woman gets to hear from this Christian man an amazing argument on why Jesus is God. Listen to this.
He told me, like, you guys believe in Jesus as the Son of God, but then you don't believe that he is God.
Yes, both.
How?
A son of God is actually pretty normal. This is in the Old Testament all the time. The sons of God. We are children of God, those that walk with him. Just like you are the children of your father, God is our heavenly father. So we are his sons. So we all walk how he walks. Be holy, Brian will be a son of you.
You guys refer to yourself as the children of God.
Yes. Yeah. So a lot of people put more weight on the Son of God. The people that Jesus was speaking these words to, when he said, I'm Son of God, they didn't have no issue with that. What they had a problem with was him saying Son of Man, which had way deeper context and way deeper meaning. By him saying being the Son of Man, he was claiming to be God. That is the context that they understood it as, which is why they tried to kill him.
This Muslim woman gets to...
So I'm going to go back here just so you guys I can read this to you. When he's talking about that they didn't have a problem with Jesus saying he was the Son of God because, you know, we're all sons of God, like they would have understood this lingo. But he said they had more of a problem with him saying he was the Son of Man. And that's because right here it says he was claiming to be the divine figure from Daniel, chapter 7, verses 13 to 14, thus declaring himself to be God. So there is a divine figure in Daniel that is recognized as the Son of Man, and this divine figure is who every time Jesus claimed himself to be that is where there was a huge problem. Like this man is claiming to be God himself, blasphemy. This is where all of those claims would come from. I love this interaction here because, you know, Islam has a very different belief of Jesus than we do as Christians. You know, they do believe in Jesus, but they believe that Jesus was a prophet like Elijah or like Moses, right? Like even if you want to say someone even more minor than them, right? Elisha, Hosea, like some Joel, like someone like that. But they just think he was a prophet. More on the lines of Elijah or Moses, so they put levels to it and say he's higher up. That's why every time in Islam when they refer to Jesus, they say blessed be upon him. So they do think he is someone important, but they don't think that he's God himself. So I like this interaction that this Christian man and this Muslim woman are having. I hope to see more interactions like this. Guys, Cliff always makes his Christian content on YouTube and in the form of YouTube Shorts and sometimes podcasts. Whenever you get a chance, go watch his channel. You will be encouraged by his channel. I appreciate his content, and I know you guys will too. So with that being said, guys, I gotta wrap this live up today. Kind of fast for what I'm usually on here for, but like I said, I got a group to be at tonight, so I don't like to be late to things. Late happens, but I hate it. It says something. Punctuality is it's a big speaker without speaking, right? So let me go ahead and get to that group. But with that being said, guys, we will be back tomorrow. Same time, probably tomorrow we'll be on around 15:30, 1600, 3:30, 4 o'clock for those of you that don't know military time. And I appreciate you guys stopping by and chilling on the corner with me as always. Always have fun with you guys. It's always real. So until next time, guys, take care of yourselves, love yourselves, and love one another, and be peaceful. Peace.